Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a guest. Her name is Jane Martin, and she is a clairvoyant. She has been a clairvoyant for 20 years and a former spiritual teacher. Jane shares her journey from a strict Catholic upbringing to exploring various spiritual practices, including meditation and healing. She discusses her transformation into a clairvoyant and the techniques she learned to access psychic abilities. Let's hear it from Jane.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Veronique.
And I'm Silvia.
Welcome to the High Vibes and the Mic podcast,
where multicultural moms connect. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show, High Vibes and a Mic. I'm Silvia and I'm here with Veronique, and we have a special guest today. She used to be my spiritual teacher, and I'm very excited to talk to her. It's Jane. How are you, Jane? Jane Martin.
I'm great. Thank you, Silvia and Veronique. It's so great to be here with both of you.
Thank you. So let's start off by, I'd like just to ask you how you were introduced to spirituality. When were you just like, okay, this is something new I've never heard before, and in general? And I
In general, not clairvoyance, but in general.
Yeah, in general, yeah.
I was raised Catholic, so Catholicism was very important to me as a child, and I took it very seriously and set up an altar in my backyard, and I would say the rosary every day, and I would go to mass every day, and I took it all very, very seriously. But then when I reached puberty, I just started to feel that I wasn't finding the intimate relationship with spirituality that I was really looking for. And I started exploring other things, which we talked about in great detail in the last podcast, how I got involved with a lot of different, with a specific spiritual community. But I was always very interested in developing my spiritual side. And I learned a lot about meditation, and I was really aware of that I wasn't just a body, that I also had a soul, as you would say in Catholicism, or a spirit, as we say in the clairvoyant world, that there were two aspects to my being, and that the material world was just one dimension of that, and that there was more to me than just that.
Oh, wow. And where did you take this? I mean, what course did you take, actually? Was that from the community that we discussed in that episode, or no?
What course in terms of meditation?
Yeah, meditation course, yes.
Well, I learned a lot of different meditation techniques when I was part of that Rajneesh community. They had very specific meditation practices that are very unusual, that had to do with being very active and really expressing yourself and letting out a lot of emotion in order to get quiet within. Also involving kind of ecstatic dance, things that involve like really doing so much movement that eventually you come to a place of stillness and quietness inside.
Oh,
but
okay.
After that process, I just tried some different meditation techniques with some other schools, but none of it really was working for me. When I got to be in my 40s, despite all of that, I felt that I had accumulated a lot of pain in my space, that I was having a hard time to let go of the past. And I felt like I was carrying this like really heavy bags with me. I would I was afraid to like run into people that I felt uncomfortable with. And I just had gotten to a point where 1 year when I was in my 40s was just like a really low point for me. I felt like I had been betrayed by a lot of people. I was in a pretty bad car accident. I got rear-ended on the freeway, and just one thing after another. And I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm only in my 40s. How am I I'm like just halfway through. How am I going to survive the rest if it just keeps getting like this? And it was at that point where I had a group of friends, we had a book club, and one of the women said, oh, I know this place we can go where you can get a healing. So we all decided to go to this women's healing night, and we went in, and I had no idea what it was. And I sat, and all these women came into the room and sat in front of us and gave us healings. I had no idea what they were doing, what it meant. I couldn't even say whether I felt better from it or not. But I left there, and one of my friends, who was also Brazilian, by the way, she said, oh, let's go back again. They're having a festival at that place. So I thought, okay, I'll go with you. And we went to the festival, and we got a psychic reading, and I didn't even really understand what it was. And after the reading, the person who had read my friend told her maybe she would be interested in taking classes there. So she begged me to join the class with her. I know how it is with girlfriends, right? They don't want to do something on their own, right? They want to grab you and get you to join them, So I said, okay, things are pretty bad for me right now, but it can't hurt. I'll go learn a new meditation technique. And as the way the universe works, she wound up moving to LA and never showed up to the class. So I was there on my own, and I started taking these classes, and I really just went into it thinking I was going to learn about meditation and trying to settle myself down, trying to give myself a safe space to go to deal with all of this sort of trauma I felt I was carrying. And every class that I went to, I just started to feel like, wow, something is really happening for me. I'm actually getting some really solid tools that are helping me to feel better. I remember the one class in particular that was just mind-blowing to me was that I did not need to have my husband's energy in my space all the time. That was just like, whoa, I can actually clear my husband, my kids, everybody else out and have some healthy boundaries. And it would actually make all of our relationships better and actually closer and more intimate and more loving. And that was just mind-blowing for me. So I continued taking the classes, and then I know I'm going to sound like a fool, but it took me a couple months till I realized I was going to start learning how to be a clairvoyant from that. I just thought it was meditation. That's how much pain I was in. I couldn't focus on anything other than what was inside of my head. And I was really surprised to learn that there was a way that I could learn how to be a psychic from doing those classes. And then I was hooked. I just continued to study and learn up until now. It's been, well, I think definitely 20 years at least that I've been doing this.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. It seems like yesterday, but it's 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's amazing.
So you're psychic. Can you describe to us, for people who don't know anything about this, how you prepare for a reading and what happens when you do a session for someone?
So the psychic school I went to was created by people who had studied with a man named Louis Bostwick. Louis was a natural born psychic, but he had studied a lot of different spiritual techniques, and he developed a very specific program for what a layman could do to learn how to be a psychic. Because I think a lot of people think that you have to be born with
Yeah.
psychic abilities, but he had developed a way to teach everyone how they could access that ability in themselves. But it was following a very specific set of techniques that you learn. And then you can start to bring your awareness up to your higher chakras. So what you're doing is you're really paying attention to pictures that you see with your eyes closed when you're looking at someone. Now, I was teaching a class this morning to a very, very beginner student, and they were saying how, they see these pictures, but it's so random. And I was saying, when you're a beginner, or if you haven't studied this, you think that these pictures that you get or these thoughts or images you see are totally random. But for a psychic, those are not so random after all. They really have a significance and a meaning. And so when all you do is really change that orientation to giving credence to the pictures that you see when you are psychically looking at someone, and you start to describe those pictures. That's sort of the main focus of what a psychic reading is all about.
So you describe the picture to the person you're doing the reading. So you don't interpret the picture. You're just telling them what you see, and then they can tell you, okay, I think that's what it means. Oh.
It's really important to know that, every person has their own ideas about what different things mean and their own filters. So that's why it's really important to make sure that if you do talk to a psychic, that you kind of find out ahead of time if they are in alignment with your own values and your own belief systems, and that you have a good sense that you can feel good about what they're going to tell you. Because every psychic, when they are looking at the pictures, they're going to interpret it through their own lens.
Yeah.
So I felt for myself, the reason why I thought of myself as being a pretty good psychic was because of all the previous meditation and therapy and different things that I had studied. I felt like I had a real breadth of knowledge that could back up what I was looking at when I would interpret a picture. So you might find, like, sometimes some of the young psychics that are really good at seeing the pictures, they just may not have as much life experience to really interpret what they're seeing.
Okay.
So they might be incredible at seeing things, but they may not always understand the complexities of all the different situations we get ourselves in life, and how to find, give somebody the information they need to find their own answer. But ultimately, even though the psychic is looking at the pictures and maybe interpreting it, it's really each person who gets the reading, it's completely their responsibility of how they handle, how they receive that information as well. To be able to discard what they don't find meaningful, and to find those nuggets of wisdom that they think will help them on their path, help them find out what their truth is about what they're asking about.
Yeah, I have actually an example of that in our last reading. So for our listener, Jen did a reading for me, I think like a few weeks ago. And when she was looking through my chakra, she told me, I just saw something that I wasn't expecting. I see you pregnant. I don't know if you remember that.
No,
You saw
I
me
don't.
pregnant. Oh, you don't remember? I remember
No.
that. So you were like, oh, I see you pregnant, and there's no way I'm going to be pregnant. Okay. So then while we examined that a bit more, it was actually, it's like I was birthing or working on a project that I consider like my baby. And we talk about this, and then I explained, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I have this project. It's like my baby. And so I'm thinking if it was maybe like a new psychic, maybe yeah, he wouldn't understand what he was saying, right? He would have told me, oh, you're gonna have a baby, or I see
Right.
that
Right.
you'll be pregnant soon, which is not the case.
Right, exactly. Well, when I first started, the very first time I did a festival, like the festival I had gone to, and I was going to be giving readings on my own, I remember a woman being sat in front of me and she wanted a career reading. And that completely freaked me out because I was like a stay-at-home mom, not a career person, and I felt intimidated. So then I thought, well, really, all I really have to do is just say what the pictures are that I see in her space. So I just went, okay, I don't need to give her career advice. That's not what this is about. I don't need to figure out what career she should have. I just need to look at the pictures. So I start looking, and this is when I first started. So I was full of self-doubt. And I really was in that place where I thought, oh, this is just random. So I started seeing this hiking trail that I knew that's in Lafayette, California. And it was a hiking trail that I had gone on many times with friends, but it was really hard to get to. You had to kind of go through the housing complex to get to this place, and then you had to hike straight uphill, and it was a little bit obscure. But I'm seeing that trail. I knew exactly that that was it. And I saw the woman running on the trail. So I'm describing this picture to her, and I said, and then I see you running up to this oak tree, and there's an oak tree at the crest of the hill, and there's a bench underneath it. And I knew the bench because the gentleman who had put the bench there had done it in honor of his wife that passed away, and I knew him. So the whole time in my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, Jane, you're just describing a trail that you've been on 100 times. This is going to be meaningless to her. And I go, well, I see you, and I just keep seeing you at that trail, and I see you at that bench under the oak tree. And she said, my dog died last week, and that's where I placed his ashes.
Oh.
Oh,
So you
wow.
see?
And I was like, she was started crying, and the tears were streaming down her face.
Yeah.
And I was just like shocked because she knew exactly the place I was talking about. It hadn't been random at all. It had maybe just been kind of a coincidence that I knew the exact trail that she had been on. And I just said, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything about your career, but I can say that your dog's passing is really, really intense for you right now.
Uh-huh.
So she was like, oh, thank you. She was very appreciative of the reading. And then we went into the clean out room where all the psychics would gather to kind of clear our space after the readings. And I said, I'd seen this trail. And another reader said, oh, I read that woman also. And I saw this dog sitting right next to her. That was her dog, Daisy. And so I told her about her dog as well. And so it was very validating for
Yeah.
the woman, because that had been such a meaningful thing, but also for me as a reader, that I was able to see something that wasn't just random, but that was significant to that person.
I guess her pet was really in her space, right?
He had not
for people to
passed
see it.
yet, and he was still his spirit was still like sitting by her side. Yeah.
And what would you say has changed since you became a psychic in your life?
Well,
Something in particular?
I unpacked and let go of those suitcases I
Yeah.
was carrying. I really was able to let go of a tremendous amount of pain and trauma from the past that I had worked on in therapy, but that just felt like I just kept talking about the same things over and over. Once I started doing the psychic work, I found ways to actually really clear a lot of that energy out of my space and move on. I'm not trying to, paint a picture that I don't have to deal with things all the time. I do, but now I have some tools that help me navigate through life with a lot more ease and a lot more clarity. My relationship with my husband got way better, way
That's
better.
good.
Yeah. And with my kids, I mean, there's just so many things that became easier for me. Plus, I'll just share that I had a young man contact me recently. He's contacted me a couple times. And I had given him a reading when he was living in London, and he was really quite unhappy, very, very unhappy.
Okay.
And yes, and I gave him a couple readings, and we talked about, his desire to change his life, and we looked at a lot of those pictures. And after we had the readings, he took quite a few actions and really changed his life for himself. And he just contacted me from Morocco and was telling me how fabulous his life is and how successful he is. And he's doing everything he loves. And it's those kind of stories that just make me feel like I had a positive impact on someone's life, and it really brings a lot of satisfaction to me as well. So I was very happy to hear from him. I don't always hear from me. Sometimes people are happy and move on, and I never hear from them again.
I know, right?
Right.
You're like a doctor.
Yeah, but it's really a value that I have, or a principle that I have, that I do not want people to think that they need to contact me for their answers. I want to empower people to find their own information and their own answers. So I'm okay with not hearing from people after they've had a few readings, or maybe they'll contact me a couple years later to get a new read, but I'm not into that, oh, let's set up a payment plan and get you. That's not my style. So I encourage people to go in a different direction. If someone tries to convince them that they have their answers, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, so they don't really since you mentioned that, so we don't really need, or you would not tell someone like, hey, you need a reading every month, or like a massage, or like a doctor's appointment, you need to have that done every month to.
No, never. I would never do that. That's not, I personally enjoy trading with other psychics, getting readings from teachers and giving readings to people on a regular basis. But I don't think that people need to set up any kind of schedule of readings. They should really just start to tune into themselves. And if they feel like something is vexing to them and they don't know, how to deal with something, maybe they can get a reading from someone. Because even when you've been a teacher like myself, sometimes it's still helpful to get an outside perspective. But I don't set it up like manicure appointments. No.
Yes, right.
No, no.
Good. Yeah. It makes sense. So, Jane, what type of healing modalities do you practice? Do you also do mediumship readings along with the clairvoyant readings?
The mediumship for me is more of a spontaneous thing where occasionally when I'm reading someone, the spirit of a person that wants to communicate with the readee, I'm going to call them the readee, the person who wants the reading, will come in and will be really eager to communicate. And then I will do that. I'm not, I don't practice mediumship. Like, I know that there are some people who are really, really tuned into that, and they are always aware of beings that are around that they can tune into and get information from. It's a whole different modality of reading than being a clairvoyant. A clairvoyant looks at pictures in someone's space and is so. I would say that my readings, just because of my own flavor that I am, are about personal growth. They're really about what's your life path, what is in the way of you moving forward on your life path, what lessons are you learning, what are your good next steps that you can take, and, giving people the tools to meditate and find their own information. It's very different than a mediumship reading. But I have had people who have contacted me to, communicate with their loved ones, and and I'm able to do it. I remember this one do we have time for me to tell you about one reading?
Sure. Of course, yeah.
So this young woman came and she was grieving and she was having a really hard time to move on with her life. And she was a professional woman, young woman, and she was very sad because a former boyfriend had passed away. They had not been dating for a year, but she felt really responsible for his death. And I wound up having him come in and communicate. I was kind of surprised, but he came forward and I said, "Did he die from playing Russian roulette?" And she said, "Yes, that's how he passed away." And I said, "Well, he didn't mean to die. He was very reckless. And so he wound up shooting himself. You know how Russian roulette is, where they take a gun and spin the chamber and see if there's a bullet or not. And he'd been playing that game and he shot himself. And she had felt that if she had been with him, she would have kept him from playing stupid games like that."
Yes.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's part of the story, was that he was so much in amusement on the other side. And he said, "I was just really, really dumb. She could not have stopped me from being the fool that I was. And next time I get a body, I'm going to be a lot more responsible with it and not play such foolish games. But she needs to forgive herself and move on. She's not responsible for my stupidity."
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
I remember when I saw him wearing this jacket. And the jacket was really old school, like something you'd see in the 90s, like a big satin jacket with, and it had fuchsia embroidery on it. And I thought, I don't know if I should mention this to her, but I see him wearing this jacket with fuchsia embroidery. She goes, "Oh, that was his favorite jacket." Another thing I thought was random. She was
Very
like, "Oh,
random.
he loved that jacket." So she contacted me later and she said, she thanked me because she stopped having these nightmares that she was having out of guilt. and was able to move on. And she got in a relationship and she got pregnant and had a baby and felt that, getting that hello had really helped her with being able to move on with her life. So there's sometimes when a reading, it happens organically and it ties in, and I was able to tune in to that being on the other side. So, it's good to be able to tune in that way, but it's not my special thing that I focus on.
Right. So, well, when people are looking, when you're doing readings to them, I'm sure a lot of times you're going to ask, can you tell me if I'm going to marry this guy or if I'm going to find a job at this company?
My least favorite.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I think you called the wrong number. Well, there's a couple components to that. To begin with, there's no psychic can predict the future. We can look at things and go, well, if things stay this way, it looks like this might happen. But because we all have free will, we can all decide what we want to do at any given moment, and we can change direction at any given moment. There's no way that a psychic can say, well, this is definitely what's going to happen for you. So when people come in and they want to know those kind of specific things, I can only just give them, if you follow the course that you're on, it looks like you'll never get that job, or, you need to change course if you want to have that happen, that kind of thing. Or, it's much trickier with relationships. I had a friend, one of those book group friends that I mentioned, and she went and got a professional reading. And I was really like, wow, she didn't come to me. She went and got a reading from someone else, because I was too much of her friend, so she didn't really want to ask me. But she was dating someone, and the psychic who she spoke with, the psychic said, oh, he's trouble. You need to break up with him. And, this will never last. And she really told her what to do. The psychic decided what was up with the guy. And I was really surprised. I would never have done that. I would say, okay, this is how I see this person's energy. And it's totally up to you whether you want to stay with him or not. Because, some women like a challenge, right? Some women,
Yeah, we all did, I think.
What?
We all did once in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really not up to the psychic to know those things. You can see the energy of the person. You can see, you can tell if, like, let's say you're looking at a woman and she's asking about a man. You can see, is he turning towards her? Does he have his back to her? Oh, is he interested in somebody else? These are some of the things you can see. But will they get married? I don't know. That would be a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
We will.
It's good to clear that up, so that people know you cannot predict the future like that, just like black and white.
No, but we can kind of give we do relationship readings where we do look at the energy between two people, and that can be really useful. I mean, we look at past lives that may explain why they have a lot of karma together, why they're attracted to one another, what they're trying to work through in this lifetime, that, we can look at in a relationship reading. And I, for one, having known how doing this kind of work really healed my relationship with my husband, I would be the last person, and I mean this, the last person to say that just because someone's energy looks troubled, that, oh, don't do that, or, do this. everybody has to decide for themselves, because people go through challenging times. And I've seen relationships really work through a lot of painful, difficult energy. And I've seen other relationships where, it just reached a certain point and it was time for people to move on. So you just never know. It's, even as a psychic, you can't say what a person should do.
Right.
That's good to that you say that. Actually, also I wanted to go back to mediumship and clairvoyance. I didn't know the difference. I just learned something today.
Okay, good.
So for the people who don't know that, so when the medium, they talk with the spirit, and the clairvoyance, we just look at the picture of people, right?
Right. The medium will tune in to who the beings are that are around you and how they want to communicate with you.
Okay.
What they want to say. It just depends on whether the reader really thinks that's going to be useful for them or not. I met a woman who's a very good medium, and she shared a lot of information with me. And she's great. She's a fantastic medium. But I really don't want to know what my mom thinks about my backyard. I'm like, okay, Mom, I know you've got your opinions. You're on the other side, but I'm the one in the body. I'm going to do it. But so sometimes it's useful. Sometimes I like, that's not really, no offense, Mom, but that's not really something that I would seek out. But when you have people who are in mourning and have just lost a loved one, especially if it's sudden, they really want to have that strong information that they can really believe, so that they can know that there's life after. They really want that assurance that it's not just a complete ending. And I know for people who are atheists and, have very strong opinions about that, that's what they believe, and that's fine. I personally feel like I receive communication from loved ones on the other side. I just had to have a surgery a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting in the surgery, and all of a sudden I felt like all of my departed family members were in the room with me while I was having the surgery, and they were all like assuring me and wanting to tell me it's okay. You're not coming to the other side right now. You're going to be okay.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, that was great that I got to have that feeling like I wasn't sitting there by myself, but that I had some loving support around me.
I would be a bit scared personally, but
yeah,
that's good that you reacted like this. So when you do your readings, and I know that you clear the chakras, and how do you have any tips for the people who you did the reading for them to keep their energy, the vibration high, and they can stay protected after the reading? Because you do so much work, but after, when you're gone, what happened after for them?
Yeah. Well, those are two different questions. So I'll answer the second part first, is after they've gotten a reading, what can they do? And when a person has gotten a reading, there will definitely be a shift in their energy, because we will have looked at these. The pictures that I'm looking at are pictures that they as a spirit are wanting me to see. They are open to getting communication on this, and they are healing themselves. Once I start looking at the pictures, they start clearing the energy. They start moving other people's energy out of their space, and they start getting ready for what their next step is. And hopefully I've been able to provide them enough insight to give them a bit of a hint of what to focus on in the next step, which, can vary from things like, getting more this is the most advice part of the reading, which is the next step. But it's like, to meditate more, or to, have more fun, or have more me time, something like that. So I give them a little instruction on what would be beneficial for them going forward. But one of the main tools that anybody can do, whether or not you're a psychic or you believe in, if you think this is all a bunch of crap, you can still use this tool. And I don't know, you may have noticed I'm laughing a lot, but it's bringing your vibration to a vibration of amusement. So amusement is an incredibly healing vibration. We look at all the different emotions as having different energy vibrations. So there's, some of the heavy ones are like grief and sadness, and there's boredom, there's anger, there's, these very heavy ones. And then there's kind of like subtle, like just being, in a pleasant place. But when you can bring your vibration up as high as amusement, that vibration is the one that creates the most change in a person's space. So it helps that amusement vibration will help to pull you up as a spirit out of the lower vibrations of grief and sadness. Now, you need to go through these things sometimes. You need to give yourself space to experience it. But if you really want to create some change, if you're at that point where you're going, okay, enough is enough, now I'm ready to make some change in my life, sort of how I felt at that point when I was in my 40s. I'm like, I'm tired of feeling always heavy. Then bring your vibration to amusement. So the simplest way to do that would be just to find a muse for yourself. Like find some imagery, something that makes you feel lighthearted about the things that you're dealing with. And then you just match your vibration to that level of amusement. And so it helps to pull you out of the negative and helps you to find some space, some distance from the pain that you're in, or the problem, or that, dire situation that you're dealing with. You get a little distance from it. And when you get that distance, when you can have that amusement, you can see those problems with more neutrality. And it's having that neutral feeling about something that takes the heavy charge out of it. And so that helps a person to be able to work through it much more quickly. And plus you get to have fun because you're amused. So, it's, if you're really feeling down, put on some, movie or something that brings you to where you just can laugh and get a little distance from some of those troubling things that are burdening you. And that can help you to get through it.
Yeah, usually I do that when I feel sick, when I don't feel well. I just put something funny on, to watch, and it makes me think about something else, that I'm not so sick right now, and yeah, it makes you feel better.
Yeah. So I've what my muse for a very long time, and still continues to be Pee Wee Herman. I can't think of Pee Wee Herman. See, there you go. You laughed, Veronique. I
think that's the face, yeah.
I can't think of Pee Wee on his tricycle without feeling a lightness and a joy, and just a great feeling in my heart. You can just start to feel for me, feeling my heart open, and it's a real healing to find that just the thought of that person who brings so much amusement, it can really lighten your spirit.
It's a good one to remember.
When I think about the movie National Lampoon's Vacation,
yeah,
and the dad, this is like one of my amusement go-to pictures of him, and when you're driving next to each other with the model.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So yeah.
Well, I know it can be a difficult thing. I think sometimes people will come for a reading and they'll have some really, really difficult problems. And then the psychic will be kind of laughing. And it can seem like they're laughing at the person.
Exactly.
And it's really, it's not the case that we're laughing at the person. What we're doing is we're using our tools so that we don't match the person at their level of grief or frustration or anger. Because this is, I think, really important is once you become a psychic, you no longer want to be an empath. Okay.
Oh,
Empathy is not the way to heal someone. Empathy, you wind up going into the same vibration that they're at. When you're a
That's
psychic,
true.
you use your tools to help heal the person and help them move their vibration up. But it can be a little bit confusing for the novice readee because they'll be like, why is the psychic yawning all the time? Are they bored? No. Yawning is releasing energy. And sometimes when a person comes in and they have a lot of stuff going on with them, the psychic will just be yawning and yawning. And they'll be like, oh my God, are they bored? And it's like, no, there's a lot of energy to clear. I mean, there were times when I would just cry through every reading because it was just energy. I wasn't sad. It's just like my tears would just be streaming down my face, but not out of sadness, just energy moving. So it's very interesting how that works.
When you mentioned this about the yawning, made me think about this trip that we just did to Disney World in Florida. And you know how those rides are, like you have to get in the line and it's a lot of people, right? So I'm in the happiest place on earth. Everybody's having a great time. But I remember that was like in one day, I could not stop yawning the whole time I was in that line. And it was so many people in the line. And I'm like, I'm not tired, but it was just like nonstop. And then it made me think, yep, I know what's going on. Maybe there's way too many people here, too much, I don't know, like they're
too much
scared
energy.
or too much energy. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's good to be tuned into those things too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I was wondering the first time you did a reading for me, I was like, why is she yawning?
Yeah.
But I figured it out as you were doing it because it lasted like an hour. I figured out, I'm like, oh, I think it's because she's releasing energy or something. I think I figured it out, while you were doing it. So
Yeah.
I didn't think that you were bored or anything like that because you were saying so important and interesting
Exactly.
things.
It was such an important reading.
Yeah,
No
how could
way
she be ever bored?
she's bored with my stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Well, Jen, thank you for coming. That was great. Great conversation as usual. Do you take on more clients? Do you want to share anything, if people wants to connect with you or to contact you for a reading? Or you just teach right now? What do you do right now?
I do readings and I also just teach. I teach small classes to beginners. But if somebody would like to, ask me more questions about readings or, taking a class, if they're interested, they could contact me. I know, contact me and my email is Davis and Martin, DAVISAND.
We will put all this information in the show notes also. This way they
Okay.
can send you an
Yeah,
email.
so they could do that.
Thank you for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Click on subscribe so you can get all the new episodes. And you can find us also. You can find our clips on YouTube. And you can join our Facebook group page. And we're also on Instagram. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thanks,
Thank
everyone. Bye. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to High Vibes and a Mic. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and exploring. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.